everybody. This is going to be that video series that I talked about that I was going to be doing for everybody. I've been doing a lot of thinking and I realized that I wanted to go a little more in depth with everybody on actually creating spellcraft and basically giving everybody a rundown on how actually spellcraft works rather than throwing a bunch of stuff together and saying, here, this is a love spell. I figured that I could take the information that I know and I could pass off to everybody else. So first off, there are some things that I want to share with everybody. Ground rule rise. Whenever you're creating spells for yourself, you should actually do what is called a working spell sheet. What that means, or a data sheet, what that means is that you go and do the research on your spellcraft as to, for example, piece of paper header, what you're asking, no, love spells. Then you go in and say, well, I don't have cinnamon, I don't have rose oil, what can I use to substitute that for what I don't have? You can go online, you can use your books, you can go in and write everything down. So that way you have a checklist of everything that you need before you cast your circle and before you call in the elementals and your god and goddess and go, oopsie, I forgot to get my oil, I forgot to get my crystals, because I've actually done it a number of times, and you learn through personal experience. So you should actually create a worksheet for yourself. Now, the next thing that I'm going to be going over with everybody is that you need to learn to program yourself, not so much program, what's the word I'm looking for? Customize yourself to the moon phases, the waning and the waxing moon phases, and get to know about what the Void of Course is all about. Waxing moon is when the new moon or the dark moon is actually starting to move its way back towards being a full moon. And the waning moon would be a full moon moving itself back towards a new moon or a dark moon. Now, the best time, for me anyway, the best time to do your spellcraft would be if you're wanting to bring something to you, you use the waxing aspect or the gesture or diethyl aspect. So you're going to bring something to you. That's when you start working your magic from waxing gibbous all the way up to full moon aspect, because as the days go by, your spellcraft gets stronger and stronger with each passing day of the moon. The same aspect applies with the waning moon or widdershins. As you start in a waxing waning, or start in a waning aspect of a gibbous, and from that point on, as the moon gets darker and darker, you're banishing and pushing stuff away from you. And it actually builds up with each passing day. Now, I'm going to explain Void of Course. It's one thing to read Void of Course in books and read online. It's another thing to physically actually hear what it really is, okay? Void of Course is when you have, let's use an example. Whenever you have the moon and another planet, what happens is the moon is actually passing in front of another planet, which is called the Void of Course, which means the energy is blocked. So in layman's terms, the moon is in transit in between either a zodiac sign or a planetary sign. And what this means is that no amount of spellcraft, no amount of you spending 8, 9, 10, 11 hours with having all the herbs, all the candles, all the crystals, all the oils, no amount of anything that you do is going to work, because it's all going to be garbage. It's going to be stagnant energy. It would be like just having a clogged toilet and you dumping all your spellcraft onto the clogged toilet and trying to flush the toilet. Nothing is going to happen because the moon energy is in transit, okay? Here's another way to I'm breaking it down my dyslexic way. Here's another way to understand what void of course means. The moon goddess is in her SUV. She just got done having a psychic convention fair, and now she's going to drive to another psychic convention fair on the other side of town. So she turns off her cell phone so that way she can concentrate on driving. When the cell phone is turned off, no amount of, hey goddess, are you listening to me? I really, really need this here. I'm showing you what I'm asking. She's not going to receive the information because her cell phone is turned off. So she turns her cell phone back on when she gets back to the psychic convention center. So again, no amount of what you're doing is going to get through to her because the energies basically in transit are actually being blocked by other energy. So that's the reason why we have issues usually during retrograde. Retrograde is when you have planets that pass in front of one another, and it creates a pulling effect. So, for example, Mars being masculine, if there's a retrograde for Mercury or Mars, then you actually, what happens up there happens down here. So, men are being pissy, men are being bitchy, men are being crybabies. That's because of what's going on up there. The same thing applies to women. The same thing applies to communication. If one of the planets is gone wonky and it's going backwards rather than going forward as the moon is going by, the moon is creating a backward pull on the planet. So what's going on up there is going to reflect what's going on down here. So if communication is all screwed up in your house, or you can't seem to get your point across, then chances are that planet that's connected to the communication is actually in retrograde, which means that the planet is moving backwards. That explains all that aspect. The other thing I want to go into is creating a personal space for yourself. That means turning off your cell phone, turning off your regular phone, locking the door, putting a do not disturb sign, close your curtains. You want to create some place that you feel comfortable, that you're not going to be bothered, that you're not going to be disturbed, okay? And the other aspect is that you're going to need to want to sit down and actually do meditation for yourself. That means that you're going to want to take your energy field that's extended all the way out here because it's all worried about what's going on through the day. And you're going to want to bring that energy field back into a centered aspect, or bring it to a whole state of consciousness rather than what's going on out here. I'm focusing in on what's right here, right now. So whenever you perform spells, always make sure that you're not cluttered and you're not worrying about what's going on out here, that you're bringing that inward aspect to yourself and saying, okay, I'm focusing on me right now. I'm not focusing on anything else. Because when you don't have clear thoughts, whenever you don't have clear intent, whenever you don't have the focus, then what you're doing is that you're mixing other aspects of what's going on out there into your spell components. You're actually mixing your spellcraft. And so it's going to be really hard to focus on what's going on here because you're bringing that aspect here. So I'm keeping an eye on time. Since I've actually left the Edster 1973 and started this new channel, I lost my 15 minutes of upload time, so I'm back at starting at like I think it's 9 or 10 minutes, so I'm actually having to time myself. So the next segment here we will be talking about is ritual bath and basically how to anoint yourself and consecrate yourself. So I will be back with you in just a moment.